What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So today I want to talk about 1911 magazines. So 1911 magazines are all created equal, right? Not exactly. So I want to talk about the differences in 1911 magazines. And I know you're looking at this right quick and you're like, well, they have different followers and stuff like that. I don't want to focus on the different base plates, the different follower styles, which as you see, they have, a lot of them do have different followers. I think there's 5 in here. Half of them have these patented fold-in ones, which lets you get an extra round in with a shorter tube without having to extend the tube on the base. But we'll go over some of that. But and also, guys, this is going to be a really technical video. I'm going to be measuring things, discussing things, pointing things out, getting really detailed. So if that's not your thing, I'm sorry. But I want to point out why you might be having some issues with feeding certain ammunition. Now, there are a lot of reasons why your 1911 might not be feeding ammunition properly. It could be the ammo, it could be the magazine, it could be the gun could actually be out of spec. It could be all kinds of things. But I want to focus on the magazine, for the magazines right now. And specifically on the feed lips and the geometry of these magazines. So if you haven't noticed, just about every single one of these has different feed lip angles, feed lip, the rollover on them. Some are tapered, some are not. Some have a really sharp cutoff. Some of them don't. Some of them, the feed lips are longer, which we'll discuss the benefits of that. Some of them are shorter. We'll discuss the benefits of that. You got to understand something. When the 1911 was created in 1911, okay, it was firing the 230 grain hardball, all right? That's all it was designed to fire. That is it. There was no hollow points. There was no different shape bullets. There was no different weight bullets. It was this. This is what you got. So they needed it to feed this properly. So they came up with basically this magazine. This is a Colt mag, optimized to feed hardball. Now, this is a more modern one, so I don't have a really old World War II or World War I magazine, GI mag. But so this is the modern one, and as you can see, it has the modern springy follower. But again, we're not focusing on the follower. We're focusing on the feed lips. So they optimize it to feed 230 grain hardball. If you take a look here, you could see every one of these, with the exception of maybe this one and this one, and I'll discuss why. They're all different. So these are all different. These came with all different brand of pistols. 8 of these did, actually. This one, this Tripp Research, and this Mec-Gar I purchased at, a store. But the rest all came with 8 different brands of pistols. Some of them I still own, some of them I don't. And the reason I say the different brands and not they're all different manufactured magazines, because there's typically only a couple of manufacturers of magazines. There's Mec-Gar. A couple of these in here look like they were made by Mec-Gar and they're not marked, and some were made by Metal Form and they're not marked. They'll have the brand of the manufacturer mark them. But let's just go over. I'll start on the right. We'll work our way left. Let's take a look at this mag. This is a Ruger mag. Oh, knock that one over. This is a Ruger mag. Okay. This is when I had an SR 1911. And I want you to look at the feed lips here. Okay. And then look at them there. Look how much taper there is. There's a difference, and we'll take the calipers and we'll just measure it here. So 0.3730. Now let's go up here and measure 0.4815. Also, we will measure this distance because that is also important for 1911 magazines, 0.600. Now these are approximations. I'm not to get this exact. And also I want you to notice the difference in here. Some of these we're going to go through and look at. Some of them are cut square, some of them are cut square deep, some of them are cut round, some of them are cut deeper and wider round. Okay, so also I want you to notice how the roll on the feed lip, not only does it taper from here to here, you see the extreme taper on it, there is a very easy release on either side. And there's more, you can see the feed lip looks like it has more roll here than it does. It gets progressively less as it goes towards the end of the feed lip. Why is that important? Well, a lot of these depended on cartridge length. If your cartridge, if you have a factory 1911 230 grain hardball, and we're going to measure this here, the overall length, now these can vary a little bit too, but this is 1.257. 1.260 is usually about where a hardball, a factory hardball, 203 grain hardball is. So that's pretty darn close. And that's a federal one. But here's a Fiyoshi 230 grain hollow point. And this is 1.204. Okay. So that's a huge difference. We're just going over the overall length of the cartridge. If everything is correct with your pistol, it's ideally, now I'm not saying it won't work. I'm not saying all these magazines given in your 1911 won't work, but I'm saying if you are having issues feeding hollow points, check the overall length, or sometimes if you're feeding ball, because if the feed lips hold on to the cartridge too long, you get this number where it's stuck up in there, okay? It needs to release the cartridge quicker. You ever have, and I'm sure you have, you're shooting your 1911 and you let the slide go and it goes clunk like that, and it's very clunky. Usually that has to do with, and it still works, but that usually has to do with the length of the cartridge and the length, the overall length of the feed lips not being ideal or ideally compatible. So we got our measurements of this one, and I wanted you again to point out how we released it. Did I measure the, I did not, I don't think. Maybe I did, but we'll do it again. Yeah, I did. I think it was 6.0, right? 0.60 right here on the length of the feed lips. And look how gradual the taper is. Not only does it flare out here, but then when it releases, it's very gradual. So we'll set that one aside. That was a Ruger one. And by the way, I think these might be made by Metal Form, because I have a Sig one over here. It's the exact same mag and it's not marked though. Okay, Mec-Gar, very, very large manufacturer of OEM magazines of all kinds of firearms, and they make great magazines. But look at this one now. Forget about the follower, but look at the, let's look at the width here. Now these are all 45 mags too, by the way. 0.428, pretty much 0.428. I don't know that there's any flaring from here to the lips to the back here. But I also want to point out, look how abrupt these feed lips are. Boom, when they release the cartridge, as opposed to the tapering of the other magazine. Okay, and not now, also, it's got a lot wider opening. I forget what the measurements were, but it's got a lot wider opening because there is no taper on there. This is why, again, you should use different, or try different magazines in different pistols, because not all of them are going to work. Again, this looks like this is a Mec-Gar. This came with a TSOS pistol, okay? This is like, with every TSOS I ever bought, they all come with this Mec-Gar. But if you'll notice, not only the follower is different, okay, the width on the feed lips are different. So they have shrunk the width on the feed lips of this 0.37, 0.379. Yeah, no taper to it, and it looks like it might be the same. Has a very abrupt release of the cartridge here, where this is where the cartridge will finally release from the feed lips and feed into the chamber. All right, Colt mag. Oh, by the way, I also wanted to mention, again, they're rounded on the back, but they're not as deep as this one. Colt mag. Look at the back. Comes down, it's square, all right? Feed lips, are, I'm pretty sure they're similar to the Mec-Gar. Yeah, about 0.40. About 0.40. They do not taper, but they do flare very gradually right here. So they release the cartridge. You could argue that they release the cartridge a little bit smoother because of the way they flare out right here. All right. Oh, I also forgot to, dang it, I forgot to measure. What was the one on the Ruger? This one releases about here, 0.60. So that's pretty close to, let me go back to these. That's actually shorter where the release is. 0.54. See, so these are different lengths too. The length of the feed lip before it releases the cartridge from the magazine and completely feeds it into the chamber. All right. Oh, this is a less Baer mag. So as you can see, they have a square back, right? But it's got more curves on it so they don't crack right here. But look at the gradual, look how gradual this is. Now the feed lips on this, where it releases, is about 0.469, okay? The width of the, on the top, 0.410. It does taper a little bit, 0.43, looks like it tapers. And then it has a very gradual flare where it releases the cartridge right here. You see that? Compared to, let's compare it to, look at that. This is a perfect comparison to a Mec-Gar. And these are both great mags, but I'm just saying the different philosophies on how the feed lips should look and work, and how they will optimally work with better or with different lengths and different length ammunition. So these feed lips, as you can see, are longer. They come to about here, where the less Baer comes to about here before it fully releases. And look at the abrupt cutoff, a la kind of a Colt mag, and look at the very easy flared release on these mags. Okay, so that's a perfect example of contrast here. This is a Tripp research mag. All right, now the feed lips on this one, the length at least before it fully releases, is like 0.6215. The 0.40, 0.40. So I don't think it tapers at all. But look at the length. Again, let's get the Mec-Gar here. Look at the length. Here's a different example. And these are both, again, cut circular in the back. You'll see those different. Here is the full release, the feed lips on the Mec-Gar right here. And then this one doesn't full release the Tripp Research until about up here. Okay, and it is more gradual. This is an abrupt boom, just release the cartridge. These kind of flare out and will slide out easier. These Tripp Research mags are the bomb, by the way. All right, what's this one? Ed Browne. Okay, Ed Browne mag. Square in the back, but this one's a lot deeper cut in the back, okay? This is very similar to a Colt mag. Yeah, we got 0.3945, so that's about 0.40, but then it tapers out again to about 0.473. And then the feed lips, about 0.57, all right? Now let's get a look with the, I'll keep comparing it to the Mec-Gar because this seems to be the one with the most abrupt release. Now, these release the cartridge about the same, but again, this is a very, boom, release right there. These, again, taper off. They're flared off, the ends of the lips, to help feed the cartridge. All right, oh, this is the Sig mag. We looked at this one. This is pretty much identical to the Ruger mag. Same company, basically. I'll show you. Same base plates. Obviously, this one's marked Ruger. But look at the same base plates, same numbering system. Ruger had this one marked, but it's pretty much the exact same mag. So they're going to have the same specs there because I measured them before I did this video. 45 ECB KimPro. This is a Kimber factory mag. This is probably made by Metal Form because they like to do these base plates like this, these removable ones. So this one, 0.40 wide, and it looks like it's probably the same. It doesn't flare out. So this one is a lot like the Ed Browne. So they are probably, these are darn close. These are probably, I don't know if I want to say they're made in the exact same factory, but they are darn close. So this also, side note, shows you that a lot of manufacturers will use the same magazines and just have that manufacturer mark them Ed Browne or Kimber, because these are very, very, very close to each other. But again, the nice easy taper for the release of the cartridge. Now, some of our favorites, the old 47D, the Wilson Combat. Now this one has the shortest feed lips of them all. Let me find one that had the really long feed lips. Which one was that one? Probably this Mec-Gar was one of them. Yeah, let's do the Mec-Gar again. This is probably the same. That one's got different. Okay, let's do this Mec-Gar because it seems to have almost the longest feed lips. Look at this one. Now, this is 0.377, absolutely no taper, and a pretty abrupt release of the cartridge right there. Just bang. Again, here's the Mec-Gar. Again, pretty abrupt release of the cartridge there, but it looks like the Mec-Gar is just a tad bit longer there. You see that? It looks like the feed lips are just a little bit longer there. So 0.50 is the length of the feed lips on there before release. 0.583 is probably about, it could actually go a little bit more. Yeah, 0.585, whatever, somewhere right around 0.60. So it is longer. So it will hold on to the cartridge longer in the magazine before it feeds it into the chamber, and that could be issues with it. The reason, another reason I talk about this is if you're using hardball or you're using certain magazines, especially in some of these GI replica gun or retro clone guns from TSOS and Rock Island and some of these other ones, they come with the mags they come with because they were designed, a lot of them, especially let's say the TSOS Army ones, were designed to feed hardball only. And what happens when you're pushing out this mag, so your feed ramp is right here, right? You want it to come in, hit the feed ramp, start lifting up. And in the case of this, you want it to get right about there and then feed straight in. If it holds on to the cartridge too long, you're going to start getting malfunctions. It'll feed up into the gun like that. I'm sure you guys have seen that before. And then in the case of shorter projectiles, if it releases it too early, because look how far that one sits in there. If it's going, and of course they dip down a bit and they hit the feed ramp, they're feeding in. If it was to release it right here, like this one, if it releases it too soon, basically, you're going to get malfunctions where they pop up like this. You're going to get malfunctions where they just hang up. Boop, you get the bolt over base one. You get all kinds of stuff. So basically, for the shorter projectiles, the shorter OAO, cartridge overall, COAL, Colt, cartridge overall length for the cartridges with a shorter overall length. And again, also, there's a bunch of factors, okay? I'm just talking about feed lips and ideally how you want to match the different magazines to the guns if you're buying them. You just be like, I bought a Wilson mag and now it's not working in my TSOS with GI model. Now, again, they will work, all right? I'm just saying, if you are having issues, check the feed lips on your magazine. Are you shooting hollow points and they're releasing too early? Ideally, and again, what I'm saying is It's not always the case. I know your TSOS will feed all hollow points with Wilson mags, okay? But what I'm saying is, let's look at the Tripp research. What I'm saying is, here you got a Tripp research. Look at the difference in length before the cartridge is released. With this Tripp research, it holds on to this shorter cartridge longer, giving it a chance to get fully, or almost fully, into position, up and into the chamber. Whereas this one releases it for your gun, and for the bullet shape, it could be releasing it too soon. And that's why you could have issues. Ideally, also, this Tripp research, now I've found these to be super reliable. Again, this is not always the case. I'm just saying that the feed lips and the cartridge overall length can make a difference. This one might, depending on the gun and other factors, the Tripp research might hold on to this longer ball, 230 grain ball, hold on to it longer than it needs to. It might need to be released from the magazine sooner. So the Wilson Combat might work better in certain firearms. So I just wanted to touch on that. Again, there's a bunch of other factors that go in, such as the firearm, the springs, the shape of the followers. As you can see, these all have different followers pretty much. There's a bunch of different factors that can go into you having malfunctions with your 1911. My point, I guess, this whole thing was not all 1911 magazines are created equally. They are actually quite different, and you might need to match the magazine and the ammunition to the gun if you were having issues. It's not necessarily, this gun's a piece of shit. Physically look at, and these for people that didn't know about the different geometry, shapes, and all kinds of other stuff in the feed lips on 1911 magazines. Get possibly, if your 1911 is supposed to feed hollow points, of course, check different length and bullet shapes of your hollow points, but also maybe get a mag like this Tripp research that has, find one of your mags. If you're a 1911 guy, you got tons of these mags. Get a Tripp research and one that'll hold on to the cartridge longer than, let's say, a Wilson, and try that. So there it is, guys. Sorry for the long video. I hope some people learned something from this. There it is. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.